The Deathworld Alliance emergency meeting began inside the massive war station called Sovereign's Fong. This wasn't just any regular gathering. 6 different alien species had traveled from across the galaxy to be here. These weren't ordinary aliens either. Each one came from planets so dangerous that most other species would die within minutes of landing there. The command chamber where they met was huge, with amber lights casting long shadows across the metallic walls. Among all the alien representatives, Commander Threxal stood out. He was built like a mountain, with thick armored skin and muscles that rippled with every movement. His home planet had gravity so strong it would crush a normal being flat. Standing in the lighter gravity of the station, he felt almost weightless. Vesrin, the Alliance's top scientist, stared at the holographic screens floating in front of her. She had 4 eyes that could track multiple data streams at once, and right now all 4 were focused intensely on the strange readings. Her voice came out as a low growl when she spoke. This doesn't make any sense at all. 3 cycles ago, this vessel just appeared out of nowhere. It's completely dead in space. No power running through it. No life signs anywhere. But look at this hull material. Our best scanners can't even identify what it's made from. We've cataloged thousands of alloys and composites, but this, nothing matches. The mysterious ship floated in an area of space that several factions claimed as their own. It had been sending out a distress signal, but the language was ancient. The Alliance linguists had run it through every database they had. The language was older than their civilization itself, predating the Alliance by thousands upon thousands of years. From the outside, the vessel looked small enough to be a simple scout ship, maybe 20 meters long at most. But when their scanning equipment tried to map the interior, the readings came back wrong. The ship seemed to be much bigger on the inside than the outside. That should have been impossible with any known technology. Commander Threxal had seen a lot in his years of military service. He'd fought in wars across dozens of star systems. He'd seen weapons that could crack planets and creatures that could survive in the vacuum of space. But something about this ship made his instincts scream warnings. "I'm going over there myself," he announced to the assembled warriors. "I need volunteers. I won't order anyone to come with me. Something feels very wrong about this whole situation." He expected maybe 5 or 6 warriors to step forward. Instead, 20 of them moved to join him without hesitation. These were soldiers who had faced death countless times. They loaded into assault shuttles and launched from the station. The journey across empty space took only minutes. When they reached the mysterious vessel, they used magnetic locks to attach their shuttles to its hull. The metal felt cold even through their suits. They cut through the outer airlock, expecting to find darkness inside. Instead, emergency lighting systems flickered on as soon as they entered. The lights revealed corridors that stretched far into the distance, much farther than should have been possible given the ship's small exterior size. One of the warriors, a young fighter named Krell, looked down the endless hallway and whispered in awe, "By all the ancestors, this ship is absolutely massive inside. How is this even possible?" Nobody had an answer for him. They moved forward carefully, weapons ready, scanning everything. The further they went, the more disturbing things became. The walls had deep gouges in them, like something with massive claws had been tearing at the metal. Some areas showed burn marks from energy weapons. But there were other marks too, patterns that looked like acid had eaten through the walls. The air itself smelled wrong. There was a scent of death and decay, even though they couldn't find any bodies. Just dark stains on the floors and walls that their scanners identified as biological material from multiple different species. They found what looked like crew quarters after walking for nearly 10 minutes. Personal belongings were scattered everywhere, like the occupants had left in a terrible hurry. There were photographs attached to the walls. The images showed strange beings that walked on 2 legs. They had smooth skin with no armor or scales. Their eyes faced forward like predators, but their bodies looked fragile, soft, weak even. Yet these creatures had built this impossible ship. The writing on their belongings matched the ancient language of the distress beacon. Vesrin found a computer terminal that was still functioning. Her clawed fingers moved across the strange controls, trying to access the ship's database. After several minutes of work, information began flowing across her screens. "I've got it," she called out. "The ship's name is Prometheus. The crew that operated it was something called humans. They came from a planet named Earth." She paused, her four eyes widening as more data appeared. "Commander, you need to see this classification. Earth was rated as a Class 12 Deathworld." The entire boarding party went silent. They all knew what that meant. Their own planets were dangerous enough. Koroth Prime with its crushing gravity. Vesrin's homeworld with its toxic atmosphere and acid rain. But Class 12 was beyond anything they'd experienced. A Class 12 world had multiple factors that could kill most galactic species within hours. Extreme gravity, deadly atmosphere, dangerous radiation, aggressive predators, toxic plants, and diseases that could wipe out entire populations. What kind of species could possibly evolve and survive on such a nightmare world? Vesrin's hands were actually shaking as she pulled up more files. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "There's a final log entry here. It's from someone who called himself Captain James Mitchell. He recorded this message right before." She trailed off, reading silently. Then she spoke the words aloud. He said, "We didn't know what we were bringing back with us. God forgive us for what we've done. If anyone finds this ship, you must destroy it immediately. Don't make the same mistake we made. Don't let it spread." Before anyone could respond to those chilling words, a sound echoed through the empty corridors. It was metal scraping against metal, like something dragging itself along the walls. Then came another sound, something that might have been laughter, but wrong somehow, distorted and inhuman. Every warrior immediately raised their weapons, forming a defensive circle. Commander Threxal felt his blood run cold. In all his years of combat, he'd learned to trust his instincts. Right now, every instinct was screaming danger. "We're not alone on this ship," he said quietly but firmly. "Everyone move back to the shuttles immediately. We're leaving now." The warriors began moving in formation, covering each other as they retreated toward the airlock where they'd entered. But they'd only taken a few steps when loud metallic booms echoed throughout the ship. Bulkhead doors were slamming shut in sequence, sealing off sections of the vessel. The path back to their shuttles was suddenly blocked by tons of reinforced metal. The Prometheus had somehow awakened, and whatever intelligence controlled it had no intention of letting them leave alive. Loud warning sirens started blaring throughout the entire Prometheus ship. The sound was deafening, echoing off the metal walls and making it hard to think clearly. Commander Threxal quickly checked his tactical display screen built into his armor. The small holographic map showed that their shuttles were still attached to the ship's exterior hull. That was the good news. The bad news was that every external airlock had sealed itself shut with heavy security locks. They were completely trapped inside this ghost ship with no clear way out. Threxal made a quick decision. "Start cutting through those bulkhead doors," he commanded his warriors. "Use everything we've got. Plasma torches, cutting lasers, shape charges if you need to. We're getting out of here one way or another." His warriors immediately got to work. They pulled out their plasma torches, tools that could cut through almost any known metal in the galaxy. The torches burned at temperatures hot enough to melt through starship hulls. They pressed the blazing torches against the sealed bulkhead door and waited for the metal to start melting. But nothing happened. The metal barely even got warm. The warriors increased the power settings, pushing their tools to maximum output. Still, the strange metal of the bulkhead barely showed any damage. Small scorch marks appeared on the surface, but the door itself remained solid. One warrior stepped back in frustration. "Commander, this isn't working. Whatever alloy these humans use to build their ship, it's beyond anything we've ever encountered. Our plasma torches should be cutting through this like it's paper, but we're barely leaving marks on it." From somewhere deeper inside the ship, Vesrin's voice called out urgently, "Commander Threxal, you need to come see this right now. I found something important." Threxal quickly divided his team. He took 10 warriors with him and left the other 10 behind to keep working on breaking through the doors. They moved through the twisting corridors, following Vesrin's signal. After several minutes of walking, They entered a chamber so enormous it took their breath away. The cargo bay stretched out before them like a vast underground cavern. The ceiling disappeared into darkness high above. But what caught everyone's attention were the thousands of cylindrical pods lining every wall. They were stasis pods, the kind used to keep biological specimens in suspended animation during long space voyages. Each pod was about 2 meters tall and made of reinforced transparent material. Vesrin stood near one of the pods, her 4 eyes scanning the information displays. When Threxal reached her, he immediately saw what had made her call him. Every single pod was empty, but they hadn't been opened normally. The transparent fronts were shattered outward, broken from the inside by tremendous force. Shards of the tough material littered the floor. Whatever had been inside these pods hadn't been released. They had broken out through brute strength. Vesrin's clawed finger pointed at a nearby control console. I've accessed the biological containment system logs. These pods were specifically designed to hold dangerous specimens. Multiple different species, according to the records. But look at this date stamp. The containment breach happened 3 years ago. 3 full years. Threxal felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. 3 years? That's impossible. If something escaped 3 years ago, then where is it now? Where are the specimens? As if in answer to his question, the lights in the massive cargo bay began flickering. Not randomly, but in a deliberate sequence, like something was playing with the controls. The flickering lights created moving shadows that seemed to lead deeper into the cargo bay. Threxal's enhanced vision caught movement in those shadows. Something was there, watching them from the darkness. It moved too fast to see clearly, darting between the rows of broken pods. Whatever it was definitely too large to be any kind of ship's pest or rodent. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoed from the corridor they had just come through. It was one of the warriors they'd left behind at the sealed bulkhead. The scream was cut short, followed immediately by the sound of plasma weapons firing. The distinctive whine of energy discharge filled the air for several seconds. Then silence fell. Complete and absolute silence that was somehow worse than the screaming had been. Threxal's military instincts kicked in instantly. Everyone fall back to the breach point now. Combat formation, watch all directions, he roared at his team. They ran back through the corridors, weapons raised and ready. But something was wrong. The hallways they walked through just minutes ago looked different now. Turns appeared where they shouldn't be. Corridors that had been straight now curved at odd angles. It was as if the ship itself was changing its layout, rearranging its interior to confuse them. After 10 minutes of running through what should have been familiar territory, they found themselves in a completely different part of the ship. They'd somehow ended up on a command bridge. The bridge was smaller than expected, but filled with control stations and display screens. And sitting at those stations were bodies. Human bodies. The crew had died right where they sat, preserved by the sterile environment and cold temperature of the ship. Their soft flesh had dried out over time, but remained mostly intact. Threxal approached carefully, studying the bodies. What he saw made no sense at all. These humans hadn't been killed by any enemy. There were no wounds from weapons or claws. No signs of a fight at all. Vesrin examined the bodies more closely, her scientific training taking over despite the horror of the situation. Her voice trembled slightly when she spoke. "Commander, these humans killed themselves. Look at this one. That's a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. This one over here consumed poison. You can see the chemical residue around the mouth. And this crew member cut open their own arteries with a blade." She moved between the bodies, documenting each one. Every single human on the bridge had taken their own life in various terrible ways. Threxal walked to the captain's chair at the center of the bridge. The human sitting there wore a uniform with rank insignia. A nameplate on the uniform read, Captain James Mitchell. He had a small hole in his temple and an ancient-looking projectile weapon resting in his lap. These humans had used old-fashioned ballistic firearms, even though they clearly had advanced energy weapons. But what caught Threxal's attention was the datapad still gripped tightly in the captain's other hand. Even in death, the human hadn't let go of it. Threxal carefully pried the device from the dead fingers. The screen flickered and came to life at his touch. A video file began playing automatically. The image showed a man with tired but kind eyes and hair that was turning gray. His face was drawn and exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes that spoke of days without sleep. Despite his obvious exhaustion, there was a determination in his expression. When he spoke, his voice was hoarse but steady. "My name is Captain James Mitchell of the Earth vessel Prometheus. If you're seeing this message, then you've boarded my ship, and I'm so deeply sorry. I'm sorry for what's about to happen to you. I'm sorry we brought this nightmare into your space." The captain paused, looking at something off-screen. Fear flashed across his face for just a moment before he controlled it and continued speaking. The creature burst through the doorway, moving faster than anything that size should be able to move. It was a writhing mass of flesh and limbs that seemed to shift and change as it moved. Zal didn't hesitate. He raised his plasma rifle and fired a full-power shot directly at the thing's center mass. The superheated bolt of energy hit the creature and vaporized one of its limbs completely. For a moment, Zal thought they'd won. But then the impossible happened. The creature's flesh began bubbling and churning like boiling liquid. Within seconds, the limb had completely regrown, emerging from the wounded area as if nothing had happened. Two of his warriors stepped forward and fired together, their combined plasma shots cutting the creature completely in half. The top portion fell one way while the bottom collapsed in the other direction. Surely nothing could survive being cut in two. But as they watched in growing horror, both halves began moving independently. The flesh on each piece started growing and expanding. Within 30 seconds, there were two complete creatures standing where one had been. They had just made the problem twice as bad by attacking it. "Run. Everyone run now." Zal bellowed at the top of his lungs. There was no shame in retreating from an enemy you couldn't kill. His warriors didn't need to be told twice. They turned and fled from the bridge, running as fast as their legs could carry them. But as they ran through the corridors, creatures began appearing from everywhere. They dropped from ceiling vents, emerged from wall panels, and crawled out of floor grates. The things had infiltrated every system on the Prometheus. The ship was completely infested with them. Some of the creatures had almost perfected their disguise. They looked nearly human, with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head in the right place. But the details were wrong. Their skin rippled and shifted. Their eyes were placed slightly too far apart. Their mouths had too many teeth. Other creatures hadn't even tried to look human. They were nightmarish combinations of body parts that shouldn't exist together. Masses of tissue and bone with dozens of limbs sprouting at random angles. Mouths full of teeth covering their entire bodies. Eyes that blinked open and closed across their skin. The boarding party fought their way through the ship. Every corridor was a battle. Every junction was an ambush. They lost warriors one by one. Some were dragged into side passages by grasping limbs. Others were overwhelmed by multiple creatures attacking at once. The survivors kept moving, kept fighting, kept running. They climbed up 3 full decks, using maintenance ladders and emergency shafts. Finally, they reached a section of the ship that had heavy security doors still sealed. Zal uses command override codes on the door controls. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. Then the locks disengaged with a heavy clunk, and the door slid open. They rushed inside and found themselves in what looked like a research laboratory. Scientific equipment covered every surface. Computer terminals lined the walls. Examination tables stood in the center of the room. "Seal that door behind us," Zal ordered. Warriors grabbed emergency welding torches from the wall storage and began welding the door frame, adding extra reinforcement to the already heavy door. When the immediate danger was past, Zal called out grimly, "Head count. Sound off." The warriors called out one by one. When they finished, Zal felt his heart sink. Of the 20 warriors who had boarded the Prometheus, only 12 remained. 8 of his people were dead or captured, and they were still trapped on this nightmare ship with no way out. Vesrin immediately went to the laboratory computers while the other warriors set up defensive positions around the room. Her 4 eyes scanned rapidly across multiple screens as she accessed files and pulled up research data. "Commander, I found something." This laboratory is where the human crew studied the creatures. There are extensive notes here, research findings, analysis reports. The lead scientist was someone named Dr. Rachel Chun. She documented everything. Threxel moved to stand beside her, watching the data scroll across the screens. What did they learn? How do we fight these things? He demanded. His warriors needed answers. They needed hope. They needed something that could kill these monsters. Vesrin's voice was shaky as she read through the files. These creatures consumed entire civilizations beyond the galactic rim. The humans found them on a rogue planet floating in deep space. A dead world where nothing else lived anymore. The creatures are parasitic at the cellular level. They don't just copy other living things. They completely absorb them. They gain all the memories and knowledge of everything they consume. She paused, her voice cracking with emotion. The humans called them the amalgam. They consume and merge with everything they touch. A massive impact slammed against a reinforced door, making everyone jump. The heavy metal actually buckled slightly from the force. Then another impact hit, and another. The creatures were trying to break through. They were throwing themselves against the door with tremendous strength. Vesrin kept reading, scrolling frantically through files as the impacts continued. The humans tried everything to kill them. Advanced weapons, chemical toxins, radiation exposure, biological warfare. But nothing worked for long. The amalgam adapted to every single countermeasure within hours. Whatever the humans threw at them, they evolved resistance to it almost immediately. One of the warriors spoke up, frustration clear in his voice. Then how do we kill them? There has to be a way. Everything can be killed. Vesrin turned to face them, and her expression was one of despair. We don't kill them, not with conventional weapons. According to Dr. Chen's final research notes, the only thing that consistently damaged the amalgam was Earth itself. The specific combination of crushing gravity, reactive atmosphere, intense radiation, and aggressive biological hazards that made Earth the deadliest Class 12 Deathworld ever recorded. Only Earth's natural environment could hurt them. Threxel checked his tactical display. His blood ran cold at what he saw. Red warning markers were spreading across his map like a disease. They've breached Sovereign's Fong. The creatures have left this ship and invaded the station. Our people are being overrun. Vesrin pulled up more files, her hands moving faster now. There's more information here. Much more. Earth didn't fall to the amalgam in a natural invasion. The humans already had a specimen. They found it in their own planet's deep oceans. It was native to Earth somehow. When the Prometheus brought back more specimens from beyond the rim, they merged together. They became exponentially more dangerous and intelligent. The combined amalgam consumed Earth's entire population in just 6 months. She opened video files that showed the fall of humanity. The images were horrifying. Massive cities burning. Billions of humans fighting desperately in the streets. Military forces deploying every weapon they had. And slowly, steadily losing ground to the amalgam. The creatures spread across the planet like a plague, consuming everything in their path. The humans' final act was to weaponize their own planet. Vesrin continued, her voice barely above a whisper. They deliberately destabilized Earth's core using massive explosives. They turned their homeworld into a radioactive hellscape that nothing could survive. They killed their own planet to stop the amalgam from spreading to other worlds. But some specimens escaped on evacuation ships before Earth died. This ship, the Prometheus, was one of them. The door buckled again under another massive impact. Cracks appeared in the welded reinforcements. They didn't have much time left before the creatures broke through, and now they knew the terrible truth. These things had destroyed humanity's entire civilization. They had consumed a species strong enough to survive on a Class 12 Deathworld. What chance did the Deathworld Alliance have against them? Just as the creatures were about to break through the laboratory door, all the vents in the room suddenly exploded open. Superheated steam blasted into the laboratory from every direction. The temperature skyrocketed within seconds, but the steam wasn't affecting the warriors. Instead, it was flowing toward the door, creating a barrier of scalding hot vapor. The creatures on the other side screamed in pain and rage as the steam burned them. Their pounding on the door stopped immediately as they retreated from the heat. A calm female voice spoke through the laboratory speakers. "There is a maintenance shaft in the back corner of this room. Go now. I will guide you to safety." The voice was artificial, but had a strange warmth to it. This was the ship's artificial intelligence, Oracle, finally making contact with them. The warriors didn't waste time questioning their good fortune. They found the maintenance shaft exactly where Oracle said it would be. One by one, they crawled into the narrow passage. Threxal went last, carrying a wounded warrior over his broad shoulder. The injured soldier had taken damage from one of the creatures and couldn't walk on his own. Threxal's powerful muscles, developed under the crushing gravity of his homeworld, made carrying the extra weight easy even in the tight confines of the shaft. As they crawled to the ship's internal passages, Oracle's voice continued to guide them. "Turn left at the next junction. Move quickly. I'm sealing bulkhead doors behind you to slow the amalgam's pursuit." They could hear the heavy doors slamming shut behind them as they moved. The AI was creating barriers between them and the creatures, buying them precious time. After nearly 20 minutes of crawling through maintenance tunnels, Threxal finally asked a question on everyone's mind. "Oracle, why are you helping us? Your crew is dead. This ship is infested with those monsters. What do you gain from saving us?" The AI's response came immediately, and there was something almost emotional in its synthesized voice. "Because that's what Captain James Mitchell ordered me to do before he died. Save anyone who finds this ship. Protect them even though we couldn't protect ourselves. The captain gave me one final mission, and I intend to complete it no matter how long it takes." Following Oracle's directions, they eventually reached a massive vault door that looked thick enough to withstand a nuclear blast. The door was easily 3 meters thick and made of layered metal and composite materials. Without Oracle's help, they never could have opened it. But at the AI's command, the complex locking mechanisms disengaged. The massive door swung open silently on perfectly maintained hinges, revealing the chamber beyond. They stumbled into a large circular room filled with holographic projectors and computer terminals. In the center stood a glowing column of light and energy. This was Oracle's core processor, the AI's brain and heart combined into one beautiful piece of technology. The last warrior entered and collapsed against the wall, exhausted from their fighting retreat through the ship. The vault door sealed behind them with a solid thunk that promised safety, at least temporarily. Oracle immediately activated the holographic displays around the room. Images sprang to life on every wall, showing a planet that took everyone's breath away. It was beautiful beyond description. A world of blue oceans and green continents. White clouds swirled in atmospheric patterns. The planet practically glowed with life and vitality. Yet there was something dangerous about it, too, something primal and wild that even the peaceful image couldn't hide. "Before I explain humanity's final gift to you," Oracle said softly, "you need to understand what humans were as a species. More importantly, you need to understand what Earth was as a world. The planet you're looking at is Earth, humanity's birthplace and home for hundreds of thousands of years." The holographic images changed, showing impossible scenes. Humans climbing massive mountains with peaks that disappeared into clouds. The mountains were so tall that most species would be crushed by the gravity before reaching the summit. But humans climbed them anyway, using nothing but their soft hands and primitive equipment. The images showed humans swimming in oceans alongside massive predators with rows of razor-sharp teeth, creatures that could bite a human in half with one snap of their jaws. Yet the humans swam with them fearlessly. More images appeared showing humans surviving in environments that should have killed them instantly. Vast deserts where the temperature was hot enough to cook flesh. The humans wore only thin cloth for protection, yet they crossed these deadly wastelands on foot. Frozen tundras where the cold was so extreme that metal became brittle and shattered. The humans built shelter from ice and survived there for months. Volcanic regions where the ground itself burned and toxic gases filled the air. Humans lived and worked there, studying the volcanoes up close. Oracle continued its explanation, and now the holographic displays showed detailed data and scientific measurements. Earth was classified as a Class 12 Deathworld, the most extreme rating in the Galactic classification system. Its gravity measured 1.2 times the galactic standard. That means humans grew up under crushing weight that would make most of you struggle to even stand upright. Their bones became incredibly dense. Their muscles developed constant strength just from living their normal daily lives. The displays showed human skeletons and muscle structures, highlighting their unusual density and power. The atmosphere was an oxygen-nitrogen mixture that was highly reactive. Breathing Earth's air actually caused cellular damage over time. It slowly oxidized tissues and organs. Humans developed incredibly efficient repair mechanisms at the cellular level just to survive breathing their own air every single day. More data appeared, showing radiation measurements and graphs. Earth's yellow sun bombarded the planet with radiation that mutated DNA. Most species would develop cancers within months of exposure. Humans evolved multiple redundant systems to repair genetic damage constantly. Their cells were under constant attack from their own sun, and they simply adapted to live with it. The holographic images shifted again, this time showing an incredible variety of Earth's wildlife. Venomous insects with stingers that could kill within minutes. Parasitic organisms that invaded bodies and controlled their hosts. Microscopic bacteria that caused deadly diseases. Viruses that spread through populations like wildfire. Predators that hunted in coordinated packs with intelligence and strategy. Plants that produced toxins capable of stopping a heart or paralyzing a nervous system. Thousands upon thousands of species on Earth evolved specifically to kill, Oracle explained. The entire planet was in constant competition for survival. Everything was trying to eat everything else. Predators hunted prey. Prey developed defenses. Predators adapted. Prey adapted again. It was an endless arms race of evolution that lasted for billions of years. And humans were right in the middle of it all. Threxal and his warriors watched in stunned silence as the display showed Earth's brutal natural history. They saw massive predators with claws and teeth designed to tear flesh. Pack hunters that worked together with frightening intelligence. Ambush predators that waited motionless for days before striking. Venomous creatures whose toxins had no antidote. Diseases that killed millions before humans even understood what germs were. And yet, Oracle said, and now there was unmistakable pride in the AI's voice, humans didn't just survive Earth. They thrived on it. They conquered it, not through superior biology, because physically they were weak compared to most of Earth's predators. They conquered through intelligence, tool use, cooperation, and sheer stubborn refusal to give up no matter how bad things got. Humans looked at the food chain and decided they belonged at the very top, then made it happen through determination alone. Oracle laid out the plan for them, and it was both brilliantly simple and absolutely terrifying. The AI would broadcast a special signal throughout the ship that mimicked human neural patterns. The amalgam had consumed enough humans to know exactly what human brain activity looked like. To the creatures, this signal would appear to be defenseless human prey just waiting to be taken. They wouldn't be able to resist. Every single amalgam specimen on both the Prometheus and Sovereign's Fawn would come rushing toward the signal source, driven by their hunger and instinct. While the creatures were converging on the ship's core, Threxal and his warriors would activate something called the Prometheus engine. This device could transform the ship's entire internal environment into a perfect recreation of Earth's conditions. The crushing gravity, the reactive atmosphere, the deadly radiation, and all the biological hazards that made Earth so impossibly lethal. The amalgam had evolved to be adaptable and efficient, but Earth had evolved its life through constant brutal competition. The two evolutionary paths would collide, and Oracle believed Earth's way would win. The engine requires 15 minutes to reach full operational power, Oracle explained in its calm voice. During those 15 minutes, you'll need to survive in Earth's environment while the amalgam tries desperately to stop you. I need to be honest with you. Most of you won't survive this. The conditions will be extreme even before the creatures reach you. Vesrin let out a bitter laugh that held no humor. Most of us won't survive? Tell me something, Oracle. How many humans survived their final 15 minutes on Earth when they made their last stand? There was a long pause before Oracle answered, and when it did, the AI's voice was heavy with sadness. None of them survived. Every human on Earth died that day. But their sacrifice bought humanity's legacy enough time to reach you. They died so this warning and this weapon could potentially save other species. That was enough for them. Threxal looked at his remaining warriors. 12 soldiers who had already been through hell and back. He needed to divide them for maximum effectiveness. Listen carefully. I'm splitting us into 3 teams. Team 1 will go with me to activate the Prometheus engine. Team 2 needs to get to the docking systems and manually seal the clamps connecting us to Sovereign's Fong. Our people on the station need time to evacuate before we do this. Team 3. He paused, knowing what he was about to ask. Team 3 will create diversions throughout the ship's outer sections. Draw the amalgam's attention. Slow them down. This is volunteer only for Team 3. You'll be facing the creatures head-on with no hope of extraction. He expected hesitation, maybe even refusal. Instead, 3 warriors immediately stepped forward without a word. Their faces showed they understood they were volunteering for a suicide mission. They were doing it anyway. Threxal felt pride swell in his chest. Does anyone have any last requests before we begin? One of the warriors who'd volunteered for Team 3 spoke up. His voice was steady and calm. Remember us, Commander. When this is over, tell the Deathworld Alliance what happened here. Tell them how humans saved us. Don't let either of our sacrifices be forgotten. I promise, Threxal said solemnly. I will tell them everything. They moved out to their assigned positions. Oracle activated the lure signal, and the effect was instantaneous and dramatic. Throughout the entire ship, the amalgam creatures suddenly stopped whatever they were doing. As one, they all turned toward the ship's core, where the signal originated. Thousands of them began converging from every direction. They poured through corridors, climbed through ventilation shafts, and squeezed through gaps in the walls. All of them drawn like moths to a flame, unable to resist what they thought was helpless human prey. Team 3 met the first wave in the massive cargo bays. The 3 warriors fought with incredible courage and ferocity. They weren't trying to win. They were trying to buy time, and they were willing to pay any price to get it. They used demolition charges to collapse entire corridors, burying hundreds of creatures under tons of debris. They set up ambush points and made the amalgam pay dearly for every meter of ground. Oracle broadcast their final transmissions to the other teams. War cries in 6 different alien languages, all defiant and proud, continued right up until the moment each warrior was finally overwhelmed and silenced. They'd bought 8 precious minutes. Team 2 reached the docking control systems and found them still partially functional. The 2 warriors worked frantically, manually overriding the clamps that held the Prometheus attached to Sovereign's Fong. They welded the release mechanisms in the open position, so the clamps couldn't reseal. The station's engines fired up, pulling the massive structure away from the death ship. But 3 amalgam specimens broke through the defensive line. The warriors fought them off long enough to complete their mission, but none of them survived. The station escaped. Team 2 had succeeded at the cost of their lives. Threxal, Vesrin, and 4 other warriors reached the engine chamber. The room was enormous and dominated by a massive crystalline structure in the center. It pulsed with barely contained energy, glowing with an inner light that hurt to look at directly. The device was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. This was humanity's final weapon, a machine that could recreate the most dangerous environment in the known galaxy. Beginning activation sequence now, Oracle announced, sealing all exterior access points throughout the ship. The amalgam specimens are now trapped inside with you. Initiating atmospheric conversion. Gravity adjustment beginning. Radiation emitters powering up. Biological hazard dispersal systems engaging. I'm sorry for what you're about to experience. The change was immediate and horrifying. The air itself became wrong in ways that were hard to describe. Threxal felt gravity suddenly increase, pressing down on him with tremendous force. His powerful legs, adapted to high gravity on his homeworld, could handle it, but barely. He heard the exoskeletons of other warriors creak and groan under the strain. The oxygen content in the air spiked dramatically. Each breath burned his lungs like he was inhaling fire. The oxygen was so reactive it was literally causing damage to his respiratory system with every inhalation. Radiation alarms began screaming throughout the ship. Detectors registered levels that would be lethal to most species within hours. Threxel's tactical display lit up with warning symbols in every color. Temperature rising. Humidity increasing to dangerous levels. Unknown biological agents dispersed in aerosol form. The ship was becoming a death trap, specifically designed to kill anything that lived. Vesrin collapsed to her knees, her exoskeleton cracking audibly under the increased gravity. She gasped for air, each breath clearly painful. This is what humans breathed every single day of their lives. This is their normal environment. Oracle's voice came through the speakers, calm despite the chaos. Every moment of their existence from birth to death, humans were born into this. They grew up in it. They lived their entire lives under these conditions. And they called it home. They called it beautiful. They fought to protect it even knowing how deadly it was. The bulkheads began glowing red as heat flooded through the system. Not hot enough to melt the metal, but hot enough to make every breath feel like inhaling steam. Threxel watched one of his warriors collapse completely, their respiratory system simply unable to process the reactive oxygen. Another warrior's exoskeleton shattered under gravity, and they went down screaming. Epilogue. 6 months had passed since that terrible day. Commander Threxel stood before the full Deathworld Alliance Council in their grand chamber. Representatives from dozens of species filled the seats, all of them listening in absolute silence as he delivered his complete report. He told them everything. The discovery of the Prometheus, the amalgam creatures, the death of his warriors, and humanity's ultimate sacrifice. We must establish what I'm calling the Terran Protocol, Threxel concluded, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. Humanity came from a world more lethal than anything any of us have ever encountered. They didn't survive through superior biology or advanced evolution. They survived through stubbornness, innovation, and an almost insane refusal to surrender even when defeat seemed certain. When faced with their own extinction, they chose to ensure the extinction was theirs alone. They prevented the amalgam from spreading to other worlds, even though it cost them everything. The Council voted unanimously to approve the Terran Protocol. A memorial fleet was immediately dispatched to Earth's coordinates. When they arrived, they found exactly what they expected, a radioactive wasteland that would remain uninhabitable for thousands of years. The planet still orbited its yellow sun, but the beautiful blue-green world from Oracle's recordings was gone. In its place was a dead gray sphere, its surface scarred and lifeless. The humans had kept their word. They destroyed their own world to stop the amalgam. The Alliance placed a massive marker in high orbit around Earth. It was designed to last for millions of years and be visible from space to any ship that passed by. The inscription was simple but powerful. Here lived humanity. They saved a galaxy they never saw. May we prove worthy of their sacrifice. But Threxel kept one crucial piece of information classified. In his private quarters late at night, he studied star charts showing Earth's region of space. Recent long-range scans had detected something interesting: artificial structures in neighboring star systems, abandoned space stations that match human design, derelict ships floating in the void, and most intriguing of all, one strange signal coming from a planet 60 light-years from Earth, a transmission in human language. He played the recording again, listening carefully to every word. This is Colony Ship Mayflower. Any human survivors, please respond. We escaped Earth before the final collapse. We're still out here. We're still human. And we're coming home. Threxel copied the transmission to encrypted storage that only he could access. Someday, perhaps soon, the Deathworld Alliance would meet humanity's survivors. He wasn't sure whether that meeting would be the galaxy's salvation or its greatest challenge. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. If humans could sacrifice everything for complete strangers, maybe the galaxy's deadliest species could learn to protect rather than just conquer. Maybe that was humanity's real gift. Not the weapon, not the warning, but the example they set. The proof that even the most dangerous species could choose compassion over survival.